When I saw Jen Engel's column on Matt Barkley, he's a guy who was very high, then low, and then I'm not sure where he is now, but Jen thinks that he's getting a bum rap. She joins us now. Why do you think Barkley's been getting a bum rap here?
Well, it's funny. I never set out to write a Matt Barkley column. I was just talking with some scouts, and, the name Barkley came up, and I said, yeah, he's been falling. And they started laughing and saying exactly what you were saying, Dan, which is this idea of, you guys aren't seeing the same things we did. You guys aren't paying attention to the fact that his center was out for the Stanford game, or the fact he can make every NFL throw out there. And, I started bringing up all the things we've heard. Maybe his long ball isn't as great. Certainly the sack totals, the interceptions at the back end of the year. And they said, that's the problem. You guys always want, and you guys are always, and when they're saying you guys, I mean, us media types, they're always, looking for the exception. We scouts, we kind of like the rule, and this guy falls under the rule of what makes a good quarterback in the NFL.
What are the knocks on Barkley from these guys?
Well, and there are knocks. I mean, this is a guy, certainly his deep ball isn't as strong as you'd want it to be. I mean, certainly you look at the interception numbers at the end of the year, those are of a concern. Sack totals, is he going to be able to avoid that NFL pressure? But this is a smart kid. This is a kid who reads defenses really well. And so I just think the expectations were so high coming into his senior season. And the bum rap came not because he was as awful as people are making it out to be, but because USC was disappointing. And a lot of people get dropped in the grease for that one.
But you also have the USC angle of prior quarterbacks who have been rated high who didn't pan out. How much does that hurt Barkley going into the draft?
For sure. And in fact, we talked about that idea that, well, is he the next Sanchez, Weiner, whatever. But let's remember, a lot of what makes a quarterback successful, what situation do you end up in, right? Like, you drop anybody in Oakland, it's going to be tough. But you put a quarterback in the right situation with the right coaches, with the right management, we're going to put a line in front of them. I mean, those things matter. And, to the Sanchez point particularly, because that's the name I keep hearing, this is a kid in Barkley who can make all those throws. And I think that was one of the questions about Sanchez coming out, and it's kind of come to fruition a little bit.
But you also have Barkley, who played longer, stayed at USC, where Sanchez basically played one season. That has to factor in, too, and I would think would benefit Matt Barkley, that he is seasoned. And, he was there. He did come back after the probationary period.
Yeah, it does and it doesn't. I mean, it does because he had more experience, more time. But people love potential, right? And especially coaches, we're going to draft the potential. And one of the things I kept hearing from scouts as you talk to him is, what we always say in the room is, let's say he does not improve that much beyond what he is. Can we live with what he is? Are we still happy with this draft pick? And I think that's something we don't always, we talk about a guy's potential. Well, he could do this, and if he just got better at this, right? Well, what if he doesn't? I mean, how many times have we seen that in this league where a guy's supposed to get better, well, if he just, and then it doesn't happen? So these guys that are drafting him have to be able to live with them as is. It's like you don't marry a woman and think, well, if she loses 50 pounds, she's going to be fabulous. You marry what you're getting, and then if any changes on top of that are great.
But we're also looking at a different style of quarterback now, Jen, where you have the read option factoring in here. Barkley obviously is not athletic enough to run that. How much does that affect his value in the draft?
Well, and it once again falls under, this is such a copycat league, right? You got to be able to run the read option. You got to be able to do this, and you got to be able to do that. I think if you look around the league, there's a lot of successful quarterbacks who aren't doing that, and that falls again to that exception versus the rule. Are you out there trying to find the exception? Are you out there going, you know what, the rule's working out pretty well, and I'm not sure which side I fall in, if you're going to have to, be able to run the read option in 5 years. But I know there's a lot of people, and I remember talking to, people at the Super Bowl saying, I'm not so sure the read option's going to be around in 5 years, And again, is that for sure? I don't know. But I don't know if you say, all right, this guy has to be able to do this, if you don't know it's going to survive in the NFL.
Best guess with Matt Barkley, judging from what those scouts said. Is he a top 15 pick?
I think so. I've heard one guy even said he wouldn't be surprised, even though all the mocks have Geno Smith going at that number 7 spot, they wouldn't be surprised if you see Barkley sneak in there. I think this is definitely a round 1 guy from what I'm hearing, and I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, let's remember this, too. As the draft gets closer, quarterback's always a position that's on the rise. It's what teams want. It's what they like. If you have a guy who, has some skills, I wouldn't be surprised if he moves up a lot the closer we get to the draft.
Jen, thanks for joining us. Know you got a busy schedule. Good to hear from you again.
Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
Jen Engel, FoxSports.com columnist.